Okay. So make the strong determination that we're going to engage in the practice of meditation, and then some discussion. And we're doing it not only to benefit ourselves, but to benefit the other 20, 25 people here, the other 24 people apart from oneself, which could be a good thing to do, you know, to feel that what we are doing, we are aspiring to benefit at least 24 people, not just me. And then as a result of that, we could even expand that and feel that through really understanding myself and what is called by mind better, may enable me to bring really a lot of understanding, peace, happiness to many people. And through also the practice of kindness and so forth, may I be of great benefit to all sorts of beings, including animals, insects, and so forth. We can aspire to this. Maybe one day achieving what we were talking about the other day, the Bodhisattva regarding every being as like their only child, having that degree of concern and care for each and every living being, not giving up on even one being. Meaning, giving up means I'm not going to help them. I'm not going to include them in my, circle of compassion. I'm not thinking like that. Anyway, we start where we are. If it's hard enough for us to even generate kindness towards ourselves, so be it. That's where we start. So let's not be unrealistic also. We always have to start where we are. If at the moment we have a broken leg or a wound, then nobody expects us to run 100 meters in a hurry. We first need to heal ourselves. Now please bring your attention to the breath. Do deep in breaths and out breaths, relaxing with the out breath, just letting go, giving yourself a break in as much as there's a sense that you are not competing with anybody or with yourself, and that you are giving yourself time and space to investigate something in a relaxed but attentive way. So there should be that sense of openness and kindness from the beginning, not a pushing, not an aggression. We think aggression means shouting and hitting. No, there can be a lot of subtle aggression where we are impatient and pushy. That's also a form of aggression against ourselves. So let's be a little more relaxed and spacious. So there's an introduction to the meditation in this book, which is very useful. So please listen. Please listen very attentively. The reality of our existence is that we are a combination of body and mind. And each of these in turn is a combination of many, many parts, all of them constantly in a state of transition, state of change, state of flux, all of them. The bodily states, the mental states. Unfortunately, what we might call our ego or the ignorant aspect of ourselves is not satisfied with this, with such a simple explanation. It likes to complicate matters by fabricating a view of an I or a self based on our conceptions, based on our likes and dislikes. We think, you know, I'm attractive, I'm not attractive enough, I'm ugly, I'm a good dancer, I won't succeed, I have a bad temper, whatever it is. We believe, the problem is we tend to buy into, we believe these projections and assume they're permanent, unchanging, and somehow part of our identity. It's like they stick to us, like sellotape. So we're trying to cut cleanly and get rid of it, sticks to our hand. It's hard to get rid of it. Reflect on what has been said so far. Do you identify? Do we identify with our likes and dislikes? With a story we have about ourselves? A narrative? A happy narrative, unhappy narrative? Do we feel there's some kind of unchanging, real I, me, somewhere, orchestrating everything? So of course we do the same with other people and objects in the world around us. We believe he is ugly, she is good. We build up our own elaborate, very solid picture of reality, and we hold on to it without question, as though that is the truth, you know. So this meditation we're going to do on the so-called clarity of the mind can be an effective antidote to these very concrete ideas and projections we have. We can, or we could, gain a direct experience of the clear, non-material, transient nature of all of our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, thus weakening our tendency to identify with them. And this self-identification, of course, is, as we are beginning to understand, the big problem. I am this, I am that, which then, you know, then expands into my, me and mine. So then my this, my that, mine is better than yours, you know, my religion, my this, my that, all of that. So anything that can weaken our tendency to identify with these projections is something to be welcomed. So as the subject, which we might say the subject here is the mind, as the subject, the mind becomes more soft, you could say, softens in terms of its projections, so do its projected objects. They slowly lose their sense, their appearance perhaps of being so concrete and solid. The feeling of dislike towards a bad person may still arise in our mind through habit, but we may have the space also to remember, oh, this is just a projection of my thought, which is clear and transitory. It rises like a wave in my mind and soon it will pass. Or you could say it arises like a reflection in a mirror and soon it will pass. The object does not exist in the way that I am holding on to it or seeing it, grasping at it. You know, like a cat or dog or a young baby attacking its own image in a mirror, we realize that these things we create are like mirror images. We don't need to take them so seriously. So this meditation we're going to do could be also especially effective for softening our view of ourselves, our own self. Normally, we could say our self-esteem is low based on past mistakes, personality faults, bad habits, and so forth. But anger, jealousy, selfishness, depression, and the other problems that haunt us are mental experiences, and therefore essentially clear, transitory, you know, without shape, color, form, weight, density, although they feel very dense, don't they? The feeling tone of these anger and depression can feel very dense. But actually, the mental experience is also clear and transitory, changing. And of course, these states of mind depend on their existence for our belief in them. We believe it. We believe these appearances. We believe that I'm not good enough. Or in other cases where there's self-inflation, I believe I'm the greatest. I believe I'm superior to others. It's just belief. It's not something based on reality. So this is important to realize that states of mind depend for their existence in our belief in them. We hold on to them. We don't question them. We don't see their fleeting, transitory, illusory nature, their clear nature, if you like. So, according to Lord Buddha, really deep down, our intrinsic nature is clear and pure, and it's actually with us 24 hours a day. 24/7 is the current expression. So these so-called negativities, and it's useful to say so-called. Negativities is written in this book, but so-called softens it because, you know, we are calling it a negativity and that makes it feel very negative. Anyway, these so-called negativities, like depression, anger, jealousy, they arise and fall like waves on the ocean of our consciousness. They are temporary and they can be eliminated. Again, the language here is gross, you having to use English language, but we could say that through our practice, they can dissolve. They can disappear. Eliminated gives this sense of, you go out there with a gun and you shoot someone. It's not being eliminated in that way. So if we practice this meditation consistently, it could eventually generate a certainty about our pure nature to the point where it becomes our reality, our actual experience. And of course, when that happens perfectly all the time, then we are a Buddha. When it happens perfectly, though, at the deepest level, continuously, and all of the false projections have been cleared away, then we are fully awakened. We're a fully awakened person. So that's not going to happen today before 8 o'clock, probably. So this is a natural step towards understanding the more subtle nature of the self and all phenomena, which comes later in the practice, not today, when we begin to go deeper and meditate on what we call the emptiness of the self, the emptiness of phenomena. So this is a step in that direction. Again, to remind some people, well, for some it will be new, for some it will be a reminder. Every single teaching of Lord Buddha, it is said, was taught by him in order to gradually lead, guide the disciples towards a perfect understanding of reality, how things exist, how I exist, what is the nature of this so-called I, this person. What is a person? What is this I? Does it exist in the way I'm grasping at it or not? Everything is directed towards that. So the pujas, the rituals, the meditations, all of the positive energy we're generating is to create that force where we understand reality. And then when that is very strong, naturally, loving kindness and compassion begin to arise spontaneously, and due to our efforts and motivations, they become very, very powerful. So then there comes a union of wisdom and compassion. Anyway, that's going off in another direction. For now, we need to generate a positive motivation again. Remember the positive motivation before we start the meditation as such. What's a positive motivation? At least we should be aiming for future happiness after death, according to the traditional way. If we're just looking for happiness in this life, well, of course, that's natural. But to be honest, and not to sound offensive, even animals and insects are looking for happiness in this life. So with our remarkable human intelligence, we might be able to go a bit further than that. Of course, yeah, it does depend on having some feeling for continuity of the consciousness beyond the death of our body. So anyway, we could motivate at least that we have more happiness and kindness in this life, but if possible, we should also aim for good, precious human rebirth in the future, so we can continue on the spiritual path. And then we could also think it would be amazing to generate a mind that is liberated from delusions and negative karma. क्लेश कर्म से मुक्त होना, ये भी बहुत बड़ी बात है. So to attain nirvana, that would be amazing. Through the practice of moral conduct, samadhi, and wisdom, शील समाधि प्रज्ञा, इन चीजों के द्वारा निर्वाण प्राप्त करना, भी एक बहुत बड़ी बात है, लेकिन even that's not enough. Why? Because I'm not the only person in the universe. Sometimes I forget that. There are countless other beings, including at least 8 billion now other human beings. So if I think I'm more important than them, then it's a delusion. And these beings are suffering and want to be happy just like me. So please generate at least some sense of wanting to be of benefit for others. And if possible, generating the causes for understanding ultimate truth, which is going to free us from the vicious circle of samsara, cyclic existence, with its waves of birth, sickness, old age, and death. Think of people you care for, people who have just died, people who are suffering. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to help them even more than we can do now? To have deeper insight into people's minds so that we know far better than we do now how I may help them. Wouldn't that be wonderful? To have a very clear idea and the courage and the determination and the skill to be able to help others more. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't it be wonderful to go beyond fear and hesitation all the time? How much energy could then be released in the service of others, service of this wonderful world? Okay, so now with some, at least even a fake motivation, no problem. In the beginning, we have to fake it. Let's face it. We can't have spontaneous, great motivations right at the beginning. It takes time. But just to begin to feel that or think about it in a focused way is very helpful, because it's not like our usual way of thinking. So we shouldn't be afraid that things just seem like a facsimile right now, like a photocopy. Photocopies, as you know, are extremely useful, essential. So again, breathe in deeply a few times and relax with the out breath. And we do this without bringing in thought or observation of any kind, without needing any concepts. A relaxed, still, and attentive state of mind will help not to become agitated, even if there are a lot of thoughts arising. Simply an awareness of them without upset, without wishing your mind were already clear and bright or whatever. Just be with whatever is there right now. That's where we are. We start where we are, not where we are not. Just like when we were born, we started as an infant. We couldn't immediately be anything else. We couldn't even be 1 month old. When we were born, we were just what we were. We started there. Slowly, gradually, things evolve. Evolving happens. That's perhaps a better way of saying it. So now we turn our attention to what we are calling the clarity of the consciousness. Your consciousness or mind is whatever you are experiencing at this moment. Maybe sensations in your body, thoughts, feelings, perception of sounds, sensation of air from a ceiling fan, or the buzz or the hum of an AC, whatever it is. In terms of the experience, the nature of each of these experiences is a kind of clarity, meaning there's just an awareness, pure awareness of it, without form, without color. It's kind of space-like. So there's this pure kind of awareness, pure nature of just experience. As though mind were like not is, but like some kind of mirror. Just illuminating, reflecting what is. It's not a mirror in the dark, it's a mirror where there is also light. Obviously, there's some kind of illumination happening. So pay attention. Sensation, sound, feeling may come up, a memory may come up. So we just allow to come and go. Not encouraging or indulging, and we are not pushing away either. Stay relaxed. Use the out breath to just let go and feel you're dissolving into space. Just maintain this for a minute or two. Initially, it's quite difficult to find this clarity, what we're calling clarity. So one way that might help is to meditate on a kind of mental image of clarity. One way is to visualize space. So we can do this by imagining that we're lying on a hilltop. Maybe you have some favorite place where you feel very relaxed and there's space and openness, and you're lying very comfortably and gazing up into space, staring up at a sky that's completely clear of clouds. Just imagine that. Focus on this unobstructed, vast, empty space of sky. And imagine that somehow it's embracing you, it's slowing down this vastness, embracing you and your surroundings. Everything becomes kind of empty and clear like space, non-solid, one might say. Feel, beyond the level of just thinking, feel that the nature of mind, your mind is like this. It's clear, empty space. Thoughts and distractions arise, but don't react to them in the usual way. Don't follow or reject. Don't identify. Remember, they are clear by nature without substance. They're like reflections. Simply watch them come and go. And return to this awareness of clarity nature. Don't think about anything during the meditation. There's no need to wonder what the mind is. Simply let there be observation of it. Its clear nature, which is like infinite empty space. That's sufficient. Be natural. Meditation should be simple and natural. It's nothing special. Ego wants to manufacture something out of everything, make everything a big deal. Just relax. Maybe that's the meaning of extraordinary. So in this context of focusing, concentrating, means holding the mind on an object continuously without forgetting it. And if we do it without tension and uptightness, then the result can be awareness, free of concepts. light or a lamp, doesn't need to think I'm dispelling darkness. It simply illuminates. Awareness is like an inner light that enables us to see things more clearly. It can dispel the heaviness of how things appear to us, thus weakening our clinging or aversion to them. We conclude all meditations by dedicating the positive energy to the happiness and welfare of all beings, including oneself. Okay. We can have some discussion now since I have to go in 25 minutes. It appears the Singapore airliner is before time. Maybe there are winds behind the aircraft, pushing it along. Just as the wind of our mind, there are winds, very subtle winds connected with our mind. This is something we can look at later. That also affects our thoughts, our emotions, the state of the inner wind. Pran. This is familiar, more familiar to people who work with yoga and so forth. A lot of subtle energy that is determining what's happening in our mind. Anyway, let's stick with what we just did. Any feedback, comments? Don't expect definitive answers. And of course, sometimes it's better after such a meditation not to ask questions immediately, because the whole point is to experience. What is problematic though is there's so many terms that are being thrown around. You will, if you start studying, you will find this word luminosity. I'm finding that a very tricky word. Sometimes they're using it to mean clarity. Sometimes it is said to be the self-illuminating quality of the mind. So somehow, due to my lack of intelligence in this matter, I'm finding all this a little confusing intellectually. And so relying on just practicing, but for now seems to be also, more fruitful. Because if you get caught up in a lot of the terms, then it can be very confusing. Can be. I'm not saying it will be. Nitya, yeah.
Hello, good evening. I got a little confused during the practice because initially you said to sort of take in our perception of sound, to be aware of what was happening in the body and all around us, and try not to grasp it, just let it be, let it come in and out. And after that, you told us to concentrate on that feeling of spaciousness, which you liken to the sky. So the confusion for me was whether the practice was to focus on allowing everything to sort of be aware of everything that is happening, or was the practice to actually a concentration practice? I wasn't sure if I was doing what
Shows
I was
how
doing,
our
or if I
mind,
was doing most.
I think, I shouldn't say this, but sometimes I think, yeah, the more educated we are, the more tangled we sometimes get. The point was to, and this is not any kind of criticism of what you are saying, because we all get confused. And by the way, confusion is supposed to be something excellent to happen in the beginning. Because if we thought we knew everything already, we'd really be in trouble. But if we admit we're confused, that's probably a very good thing. So the point is to see everything, sensations, sounds, as a kind of manifestation, an appearance which is clear. Clear in the sense it's being reflected. It doesn't have any solidity. It's just an appearance. It is the clarity of the mind is making that possible. The nature of the mirror of the mind, and the space of the mind is allowing these things to arise. Remember the definition we had in those postings I made. It's arising and engaging with with the contents of consciousness, with experience. So there's an arising and an engaging, and it needn't be anything solid. We think it's something solid. So a lot of the commentary there was to make us realize that what we're experiencing, we don't have to grasp onto and think it's solid. Then the author said, if you're finding that difficult, which we are, right, then another technique is to imagine space. Well, ultimately, what is being said is everything is in the nature of clarity and knowing, which is space-like. So it can be helpful to imagine that you are visualizing an empty sky. You see, if you ask honest, what's it called, atomic physicists and so forth, what is the nature of reality? In their better moments, when they are remembering their actual practice of subatomic physics, they will tell you everything is like space. They may use that language because the solidity of matter, when looked at and grasped with the gross senses, appears very solid and real, doesn't it? In that sense, you know, I'm putting my hands together. They're not going through each other like some, you know, Matrix movie or something. But that scientist knows that at a deeper level, there's more space than anything that we could call matter. There's waves, there's particles which sometimes seem to be behaving like particles and sometimes like waves, you know, depending on how the experiment is approached. So there is nothing, according even to subatomic particle physics, nothing which is not in a way like space. So to visualize space, we might think that's weird, you know, that's empty, blue sky or whatever. How can that be similar to the pain in my left knee? But the pain in your left knee is an appearance to consciousness. It's that experience of it is spacious in the sense that it's not anything solid in terms of the experience. We make it solid because of our ignorance and because of our fear and our aversion to it. So it becomes very solid. Highly realized Vipassana practitioners see what we call pain as just, you know, a vibration, kind of oscillating vibrations, which are no longer problematic for those meditators. So how about that, you know? And they don't have to be bodhisattvas or enlightened to feel that. That happens, it is said, through deeper awareness, through practice. So things are space-like. And that's very hard for us because since beginningless time, our ignorance is forcing us to believe the opposite. That's all I could say right now without repeating myself or getting very tangled up myself. But you just have to remember also what the subatomic physicists are saying. and then read some of the great stories of these great lamas and yogis putting their hands through rocks, walking through walls, because they know the wall isn't as solid as it appears. They're not bound by that particular ignorant view of reality. That's why they can go through them. Apparently, I've never seen it, but I believe it could be possible. Why not? Things depend on our belief in it. You know, St. Francis of Assisi could go up and cuddle and kiss a leper, you know. I couldn't do that. For me, it would be like disgusting and awful, but how come he could do it? Well, it depends what kind of world we're living in. Depends, in other words, what kind of reality have we created through our minds. So if we are living in a solid world, we think everything is solid, then of course everything's a problem. The cat or dog barking becomes a problem. The neighbor becomes a problem. The pain in the leg becomes a problem. Everything is a problem. The political party we don't like are a problem. The weather is a problem. What isn't a problem? Everything can be a problem to the mind that is solidifying. And to another kind of mind, okay, a bit more relaxed, you know, spacious. I think when we're in the presence of people who are spacious and relaxed, it is so comforting somehow. We also feel spacious and relaxed. But unfortunately, nowadays, most people are like, you know, a pent-up spring, ready to, you know, explode almost, very often. Because then not understanding that everything is like space. It is not totally space, because space doesn't have consciousness. They could have added in this meditation, actually, at least one line to show that, you know, space, our mind is not just like space, it's like conscious space. If there's awareness, there's consciousness. We wouldn't say the space in this room I'm sitting in has consciousness, you know, there is space. So when we say like space, we don't mean exactly like space, but we mean there is room in the mind for everything. We don't have to get uptight about any of it. Which doesn't mean that we just sit and allow a cobra to sit in our lap and bite us, of course, or that we cross the road thinking that the truck won't hit us. We're not talking that level of disconnect from relative truth, relative reality. But we're saying that even that truck that comes hurtling down the road towards us, even that is spacious. But because we don't have the realization, we shouldn't practice, you know, standing in front of trucks on Aurobindo Marg, because the results will be so-called fatal. But for a yogi, they could, I mean, a true yogi, they needn't be killed by that truck. Anyway, what do you think, Nitya? Satisfied with my rambling answer? I hope you're not, because I hope you will investigate more yourself.
I'm very satisfied.
Good grief, then you're in trouble. But just remember what the scientists are also saying, the honest ones. I mean, especially the quantum scientists. So-called reality is behaving in a very baffling way. Let's put it that way. It's not behaving like Newton thought the universe behaved. Discrete, concrete things bouncing off each other and affecting each other. And I may be doing him an injustice by speaking in that way, but he didn't have the quantum view in the whatever 17th century, whenever he lived. Quantum mechanics and physics, even what I've read about it with my minimal understanding, it's extraordinary. It is totally tearing apart what we think reality is, what we think matter is. Totally.
If I could.
Yeah, okay, briefly then Vishal.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say that when you were talking about the importance of spaciousness, I was thinking of what Viktor Frankl said in his book, The Meaning of Life, I think, where he says, this is famous line where he says, in between the stimulus and the response is the gap. And watch that gap or stay in the gap. And that line has been adopted later by lots of meditation practitioners to sort of emphasize these gaps. So it made me think of that line. And I also wondered, like, if you think of a normal human interaction that may not be very pleasant, and you try to stay in that gap between the stimulus of a angry comment and before you respond, you try to stay in that gap. What does that gap look like? Is it like, are you trying to be benevolent, or is it a neutral gap? Like, what is the space? What are the features of the space? It just got me thinking along those lines, not necessarily that you have an answer. Yeah.
This is a very important part. There's a humorous passage in Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, where a former famous Indian diplomat, Apapant, kept on pestering this High Lama, I think Dujam Rinpoche. What is meditation? What is meditation? And then finally, in exasperation, the Lama said, okay, you have these thoughts, right? In between thoughts, there's a gap, right? Be in the gap. Something like that in Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Of course, at one of the tube stations in London, there's this famous, thing comes over the loudspeaker all the time. Mind the gap, mind the gap. Very deep voice keeps on repeating that. And that's wonderful for us aspiring meditators to be reminded. Of course, they're warning you about the gap. But of course, we want to experience the gap. Mind the gap. So they have it at certain stations in Delhi as well, to mind the gap. But the gap in London, that one is bigger, I think. Anyway, Vishad, bataiye.
Good evening, Kabir.
Good morning. If you're
Evening. But never mind. Kabir, I was wondering, during the meditation, often you talked about non-conceptuality and not getting entangled with concepts, especially during this meditation. But often when I meditate on nature of mind, there's this conceptual mind which comes in which comes thoughts, ideas, emotions, all of these things, right? When you say non-conceptual mind, this spacious mind, how do you sort of make it non-conceptual? Because there is always a concept of mind which comes where these thoughts and emotions arise. What do you mean by non-conceptual mind, and how do you sort of meditate on it when it's not non-conceptual?
I don't know. The only times I feel non-conceptual is when I'm listening to my favorite music. So I can't answer your question, except to say, give you second-hand knowledge, which is what the teachings would say, is that practice the teachings, practice what the masters are saying in terms of how to meditate, and then gradually that experience will arise. I mean, someone like me who's so caught up in thoughts most of the time, how would I know what non-conceptual actually is? I mean, I know what the word means, but non-conceptual is when there's no thought, no concept, no image, no sense of a center or me experiencing. That's a pretty high realization as far as I'm concerned, So when they say, have these words in the meditation in this book, you have to take all these things again. It's something we're working towards. In the beginning, we fake it, in the sense we hear the words and then, okay, yeah. And then one tries through the power of attention that we've been talking about a lot, just to be aware of what is happening without needing to think about it. And of course, we're not used to that. It's like asking someone who is overweight and unfit, but who is an aspiring sprinter, and that overweight person asks the trainer, what does it mean to be lean and fit and run 100 meters in 11 seconds? what's the trainer going to say? It's going to say, Beta, for you, that idea you have is very good. It's just an idea, but through practice, you will understand, you will get to that. Through following my training and dietary advice, etc., then the 11-second 100 meters is going to become more meaningful. Otherwise, it's just a concept. We're having all these ideas, all these concepts, because basically we don't know how to let go. We can only let go if we are full of drugs, or maybe sometimes during sex, or music, or tremendous beauty. Great beauty can bring it out. For some people, nature, works of art, certain works of art can precipitate at least a split second of a non-conceptual experience. You know, sometimes a feeling of inspiration or love, a connection with someone or something can bring about a brief sense of gap. Gap meaning in the repetitive mind, you know, full of thoughts and concepts and so on, hopes and fears.
Kabirji, during meditation, even that is conceptual, right? Because during the meditation, you're looking at this gap, which is free of thoughts and everything else. But
If
that
you're
gap,
having a gap, if you manage to experience a gap, yes.
but
But
then
then
that
as you
is also
say,
conceptual, right?
then you immediately start thinking, oh, there's a gap, I'm experiencing a gap, then it's gone, you know, because you're bringing the I into it, me, no? Is
But
that
then,
what-
we are not never meditating on the nature of mind, right? Because then although we are saying we are meditating on nature of mind, and then we watch all of these thoughts, emotions, we also watch the gap, but none of that is nature of mind. Nature of mind is non-conceptual. So
we wouldn't say we were authentically meditating on nature of mind. Yeah. When you read in these books, the experiences that the lamas are having, whether it's Mingyur Rinpoche's book or books or Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, where there are descriptions of when that person, usually when they are very young, experienced something very deep, we have to understand that these are very high beings who have done a lot of meditation practice in previous lifetimes. So for them, a trigger can bring that deep experience of the nature of mind. Most of the rest of us are very confused and very full of conceptuality and the thinking mind. So for us, it's going to be, going to take a bit longer, don't you think? We're so full of the analyzing, thinking mind.
So Kabirji, next question is, can this state be sustained for longer periods of time?
Apparently, yes, obviously. When you're a Buddha, you're in that state all the time.
But then, okay.
And can you operate from this state?
It seems to be that Buddhas are the most effective at running their lives and benefiting others, yes. Because it's not divorced from relative truth. They're able to marry ultimate and relative truth in a way which is inconceivable to us. So yeah, we think, oh, they must turn into some kind of zombie or passive person just sitting under a tree, growing their beards, but that's not the case. Bodhisattvas beyond the first level and above, who already have a realization of emptiness, their actions are profound, vast, and much more spacious than ours, because they've realized something very deep. And they've understood. It's like the difference between reading countless books and theses on the taste and what a banana is. And then one day somebody actually is kind enough to give you a banana, you eat it. And then you don't need all these theses anymore on what it tastes like. You know? So someone who is continually tasting the gap, if you like, or the spaciousness, they're in a different realm from us in one way. But because of their compassion, they're helping us continuously. It's the compassion that keeps the Bodhisattva in samsara. Without that level of compassion, one attains nirvana and goes into solitary peace, which is why the Mahayana warns us not only against samsara, but also warns us against nirvana. Because nirvana is like just becomes your own personal heaven, in which you don't reach out to others at all. Once you're dead, you don't have any influence on others, except through what you maybe did or wrote or said while you were alive. So there's no continuum, no continuation of benefiting others.
Kabirji, how is it like to be in this state of mind for longer periods of time?
I don't know. I've already told you. I don't know. So you use your imagination. बार बार क्यों पूछते हो? मैंने बोल दिया कि मैं बुद्ध नहीं हूँ. बार बार ठोक रहे हैं उसी सवाल को. क्या हो गया तेरे को? Must be the air in Noida. What air are you breathing right now? वो मेरठ. कहाँ हैं आप?
मेरठ में कबीर जी.
आपका दिमाग कहाँ है आजकल यार? तो बड़ा अजीब सा लग रहा है. I have no idea. Just because I sit here pretending to be a guru doesn't mean I'm a guru. I'm a complete idiot. अभी तक तेरे को ये पता मालूम नहीं पड़ा. After hearing all these masters saying we have to, be your own master. Okay, there's a couple of minutes left. The flight has probably landed by now. You won't mind if the reason I have to do this is because this person is very kindly coming all the way from Australia. Okay, this is, excuse me, just use your spacious awareness. हाँ सोनू जी, this is the taxi fellow. आ गए? आ जाइए 5 मिनट में आइएगा. हाँ 5 मिनट में आइए. Thank you. That was Sonu, the loyal taxi driver. So yeah. Meanwhile, we can dedicate. If there's been any benefit from this somewhat shorter session, although it's longer than what a psychiatrist charges you 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 rupees for 1 hour of psychiatric treatment. And I think this could be as useful or even more so, since it comes from authentic, lamas from the Buddha and from the great masters. So, we got our money's worth. The electricity you spent on the Zoom session. But we should realize that the servers that are making all these sessions possible in the world, they are also contributing tremendously, apparently, to global warming. So hopefully we become self-sufficient practitioners as soon as possible and eat less meat and all these things that are creating more burden on the world. Some people become vegan, which creates even less burden on the world. You look at the very intelligent documentaries that have been made. There are so many ways to help the world. But anyway, we've been engaging in one where we feel that understanding ourselves better, becoming more spacious, flexible, and kind is going to be beneficial for ourselves and for others. So we can dedicate that be so, and that our practice also contributes to the happiness and welfare and the long lives of all of our teachers, and for their wishes to be fulfilled, and for all of us to be really motivated to engage if we need to in some more study, some more reflection, and more practice, so that we're not just people who read books, but become actual people who practice and can benefit others genuinely, like we see many of the great teachers doing. So may we become like that. Great. So our next session is on Thursday. We may get on to some verses of Shantideva by then again. Meanwhile, do look at that text. Just looking carefully at the first chapter could be extremely beneficial for one's mind if we think about it. And if you have 5 or 10 minutes, you can practice what we did today. Don't spend much longer than that because it might get a bit tiring. And then the mind becomes more and more full of thoughts and restlessness. So you could, that could be the homework. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take care.